Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Think
Podcast.
baby.
Enjoy the show.
They have to.
Yes, they
The
have
damn Apple cult. It's the Apple cult. Like, oh, you should join Apple. Oh, well, your phone doesn't. Like, my phone does.
So,
you have a secret system on Apple that everybody wants to be a part of.
It's not a secret.
Join.
It's literally in the settings.
And then what
It's changed
happens
to,
is
the compatibility of the photos.
they downgrade their photos and everything to like 1 pixel. And then so that they have the ability to like send it in many different situations.
It's
and they're like,
for storage.
check it out.
Yeah.
But then the Apple blows up with storage, and then the phone's dead. Like, I've watched that happen several times. You just buy a new phone, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I've never had that happen.
I've never had it happen with a Samsung.
I've had so many iterations of the iPhone. Never happened.
My wife has gone through this twice. It's happening right now. My daughter's gone through it
twice.
twice.
To you, so somehow
My youngest has had it happen.
In your household, that happens.
It might be because you don't take 5,000 pictures. I don't know. These guys are all on it, and everything syncs with the cloud. They go in there. Mm-hmm. Then the controlled obsolescence, man. Holy snap, crackle pop. That is infuriating.
How do you really feel about this? I give some feelings about it. Let's have a session.
It's the cult. It's the cult of the iPhone. Of Apple, not iPhone. Apple in general. Yeah. So now you know. You're welcome. And what's funny is I'll be doing something. You should really get an iPhone. Has anybody ever said, like, on the other side, you should really get a Samsung? No, because it's not a cult. That's why. It's not a cult.
No, because nobody would do that. It would be like, nobody's like, you should really get a... you should really grow your back hair out. Like, when nobody says that, it goes the other way.
Oh, man.
Nobody's like, you should work on looking older. They're like, you should look younger. There's a reason people go that direction and not the other direction.
All I know is it works better for me. And on top of it, it actually does have more capability. I don't know what those capabilities are.
but
in
theory it
engineers do.
Right.
Which is why they usually use Samsungs. For real.
All right, you ready to talk about people pleasing?
No!
Wow, good job. You're learning. This is a good demonstration for people. Yeah. I guess I thought about this. I was like gonna bring a change of clothes, but because I'm going straight to the water from here. And I was like, well, I guess this is just what I'm recording.
Here, you can wear my shirt. Just kidding.
No, actually, meant trim.
I just want you to feel okay.
Back hair first.
I just want you to feel okay.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
trying to please you.
Here,
take my pants.
Yours, too. That is people pleasing, and it's uncalled for. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. All right, let's do our chickadee check. Check yourself before you
wreck yourself,
because shotgun bullets is
bad for your health.
What? We already did that one. We gotta think of a new. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, because shotgun bullets is
bad for your health.
What? We should have like a singing track. What?
That's what we should do.
What?
Everybody's waiting for that.
What? Something like that. Okay, people pleasing. We are not going to do it. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are excited to be here today. It's a sunny day in Oregon, so we're especially excited because for the last 12 years it has been dark and gray. No, just kidding. We're coming out of the gloomy season, and here in Oregon at least, everybody's... The gloom-demic. Around here, everybody's seasonal affective disorder is waning, and so all their problems have gone away. Like, I feel so much better. It's like waking up from a nice slumber.
I think it's time to buy a car.
I feel so rested and wonderful. We are excited to be with you today, as always. We've got a topic. I was at our favorite place, Flyboy Brewing, last night by myself because somebody was barbecuing with his daughter who's home from college. I don't know why. So I was solo, and I was talking with someone at the bar about just kind of like what I do. Actually, it was the bartender, and she's pretty sociable, and she was, I don't know, we we're getting into like personality kinds of things, and she mentioned something about people pleasing. She says this a couple of times, and so we have a little bit of conversation about that, and I'm thinking, I don't think we've talked about this on the Shrink Think podcast. So here we are. We need to do it. And I guess here's what I want to say about that. Don't do it. Have a great day. Just kidding. We want to unpack people pleasing a little bit because it's a really common thing, and it's really interesting to watch. When she said that, there were a couple things going on around the bar. I mean, obviously there's like always stuff happening, but this was like dinner time on a Thursday night. A lot of people were coming in, a lot of stuff that was happening, and I was kind of watching her maneuver around. People were coming up and ordering, and there were some issues that people had, not necessarily hers or whatever, but watching kind of people pleasing playing out and thinking, wow, I'm proud actually I got that sentence out. People pleasing playing out.
Oh, you did it again.
Yeah, I know.
That's very pleasing.
I'm sharp. It was great. It's the coffee, Black Rifle coffee. But it's interesting watching this. It's, in a sense, when you know what to look for, when you know what it is, it's pretty obvious. And if you've recovered from it, I've had some people-pleasing tendencies. I think, like most things, there's like a spectrum of this stuff that everyone falls on. It's not like you either do it or you don't. Same thing with narcissism, for example. I know when we did this episode, it's not really that it's either you are or you aren't. It's kind of like, well, what level of narcissism do you have? There are some healthy levels of it, and then obviously there are these really unhealthy levels of it. So like with that, we want to break it down and help you to see where you're at on this spectrum and give you some tips and some tools and what you can do about it, because it really is not good for you and is really bad for your relationships.
Yes. I was just thinking we're going to go over some examples of this, and I was actually just thinking of the spectrum, and on one side of it, I was thinking, it'd be funny to make a Shrink Think shirt that on one side it had a turd of the spectrum, and the other side it has all these healthy phrases, and then it says across the top, "Don't be a turd."
Don't be a turd.
I think
we should add that to your collection.
I
That's
will.
definitely
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think it's really cool.
So don't be a turd. Have a great day.
Yeah. So I kind of guess I'm wondering, where do you think we should start off?
Yeah, so as always, I think when we're talking about something like this, like people pleasing, I think it helps to give some feet to, or some put some skin and bones around this thing so that people can see well, what does it look like? How do you define it? So for starters, I would say kind of in general, people pleasing is like caring more about the opinions and thoughts and feelings and needs of other people above your own, more than your own. Now, this doesn't mean that you should not be a selfless person, a caring person, giving sort of a person, because that is certainly true, but it's at the expense of yourself. I think that's the problem, particularly when you have your own opinions, your own feelings and needs, and you're sacrificing those when it's going to do damage to yourself. And it's not really benefiting the other person. Mm-hmm. It's usually not. It's not what they really want. It's what you think they want, or what you're afraid that if I don't give them, then they'll be upset with me somehow. So I have to give them this. I think the bartender is even saying this. She said something like, I'm afraid that if I don't do this, then other people won't like me. And that's a really common people-pleasing phrase, right? I got to keep the peace with other people, keep them liking me, wanting me, needing me in some way, because I'm afraid that if I don't do something, if I'm not giving them what I think they want, then they will be unhappy with me because I'm not good enough or sufficient enough on my own. I guess now that I'm saying this is sort of a combination of a couple clients that were this week saying that too, not just the bartender, but those are common things that people say. Yeah,
and the part of this to consider too is that it's not like you're going out thinking, what am I going to do today? I think I'm going to please some people. You don't have to have some kind of mindset where you're doing this. This is not about that. Also, although we've talked about boundaries in the past, and boundaries completely relate to this, we're not going down that road completely, because there's some nuance and there's some difference that happens before all of that. And I want to say that as we were talking about this, I think some of these things are actually going to be, I don't want to say counterintuitive, but I think that you will learn some things today that are like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that could happen. That's because I think people pleasing in general is one of those things where a lot of people, it's kind of one of those pop culture things that people that give any care about mental health will be aware of to some extent, and they will try to be mindful about. And so I think as we've kind of processed this through before even jumping on YouTube, there's some stuff that came out. I'm like, oh yeah, it does lead to some of these places. So I'd encourage you to make sure that you keep listening. And here we go. And I'm just going to take a little bit of a sidetrack because we're coming up on our 200th episode. It's happening. Can you freaking believe that? 200 episodes.
It's like coming up on, it's like, what, 3.5 years, almost 4 years of doing this. Whew. Yeah, it started in, I think, September of 2020. And here it is.
It's crazy.
May of 24.
So we've been kind of contemplating what we're going to do. Obviously, this whole thing has changed your life. We realize that you want to appreciate us.
You're welcome. All we ask in return.
Yeah, send your donation. Anyway.
It's to please us.
Right, be pleasing. So we're going to be doing some kind of event probably toward the end of June at a local brewery. What we're hoping is if you want to show up, you can. Like, you know, that type of thing.
And if you need like hotel accommodation recommendations because you're flying in from out of state or out of country, let me know. I'm happy to provide that information for you. I won't pay for it, but I'll tell you where to go.
Okay, so we will give more details later, but if you can't make it, that's totally fine. It would be what we want to open it up to be able to send like questions that you might have for us. That could be even some personal type of stuff that's more like behind the scenes type of thing. They don't have to be mental health, I guess is the point there. Or if you want to ask mental health questions or whatever, or make statements like whatever that might be. So at any rate, we can move back to our awesomeness of the pleasing of people. Sorry, Aaron was taking a picture of me. And, oh yeah, we're be-reeling. So, at any rate, here we go. People pleasing.
So, what's happening with people pleasing? As I said, I think for the most part, it's you're thinking more about what other people are thinking or what you believe other people are thinking. So, in a sense, you are in other people's minds. You're in other people's thoughts. You're sort of dabbling in a space that is not your own. I would even say it's a space that you don't belong, really, because other people's thoughts and opinions are none of your business. I think, so I'm kind of describing it a little bit of like what's happening, but also what the problem is and what you can do about it. I mean, it's sort of leading into that a little bit. I'm not going to go into what to do about it just yet, but if you're dabbling in what other people are thinking about you, it's creating problems because you don't know what somebody else is thinking about you. I could say, oh, I think Nathan thinks this and he feels this and whatever, and I might create a caricature of him in my mind of who I think he is that's based on my fears and my own insecurities. And then I'm interacting with that caricature and not Nathan himself. I'm not dealing with the real actual person, his actual thoughts and feelings, because if I'm being honest, as a people pleaser, I'm worried about those. I'm afraid of what he's actually thinking about me. I don't really want to know because my fear is he would say, oh yeah, he's great, but, and then some horrible, awful things that validate my deepest fears as a person. I'm not good enough, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm not enough of something else, right? And so I don't really want to get into that. And so in a certain sense, as a people pleaser, I will tend to keep a bit of a distance. It's not intentionally, it's not like somebody like sitting around, you know, twiddling their thumbs being like, what am I going to do today? Oh, this person is thinking this about me, so I'm going to intentionally... No, that's not what's happening. It's just sort of an intuitive reaction to the facial expressions, the verbal responses, the like almost the hypervigilant anticipation of what you believe the other person is going through, and then you're adding meaning to that as a people pleaser, thinking, oh, because Nathan's not saying anything, he's upset with me, or because he's doing this and that means whatever. And I've created this story in my head instead of letting things be what they are, or asking him directly for his thoughts and feelings and dealing directly with what he is giving me and who he actually is.
So it's maybe focusing a little bit more on that word caricature. It's this idea in the moment. We've talked a lot about, or the podcast time that we've had, podcast episodes is what I'm trying to say, about how fast the intuition is. There's a layeredness to this, right? So what you have all of your experiences of your life. You have the different experiences you've had where you have felt less than, where people have treated you poorly. Those feed in microseconds into your own experience of what you're anticipating is going to happen. So if you think of, the old political caricature cartoons where somebody has kind of a little bit larger nose and then they do this picture where you got a gigantic nose, you're going to naturally focus on the things that support these crappy experiences you've had in the past, and maybe the other person's tendency to where maybe they could be like that. Maybe they have been similar. You've seen them even do it to somebody else, like where you went like, whoa, that's kind of intense. And now what you're doing is naturally avoiding that big nose, but that doesn't mean it's actually there. And you're projecting a lot of what's going on. Were you going to say something here?
Yeah. I think just as you said it may not actually be there, or it may not be as big or as bad as you're making it out to be.
Right.
And kind of alongside of that too, let's say it is somewhat of a big nose, as we're kind of describing in this illustration. I like that tie-in. In this illustration, the big nose, the fear of the big nose represents, as a people pleaser, potentially a low tolerance for difficulty, conflict, or hard truth about yourself or somebody else. So you might be avoiding not just conflict, but avoiding necessary, difficult things that are typical for relationships, typical for a person, because you don't tolerate those things in yourself.
So one example of this that I think is a really good one, and I kind of came up with on accident earlier in the weeks here, was that I was trying to explain this type of thing in the form of codependency, but people pleasing is this element with another client. And I said, look, let me give you an example. So earlier in the day, I realized that this meeting that I was going to have was going to be I had the opportunity to be 60 minutes or 90 minutes. And the problem with it being 90 minutes is it would be we'll just say it's 1 o'clock. I was going to have one meeting at 1 o'clock, and I had a meeting already scheduled at noon that was going to go to 1:30. But then I realized, okay, that's going to put me a half an hour late to this other thing. And so, but I did have the flexibility of maybe making my noon end at 1, and then I'd be on time. So I decided, well, I don't know really what I want to do with that. And Aaron would have been having to carry this 1 o'clock meeting by himself, essentially for at least half the time. So I decided I'll just ask Aaron what he thinks. And Aaron did not. So there's two things that I want to highlight. On the one hand, if Aaron was a people pleaser, what he could have said was, oh yeah, do whatever's best for you. When he didn't even think about it, just automatic response. That's okay. Just go ahead and do it.
Oh, you need this? Okay, sure. You can have whatever you need. I'm not even thinking about what I need, because whatever you need is the best thing.
Right. So he didn't do that. He goes, well, wait a minute. Let me think about this. And so we processed it, and then it was fine, basically. Like, it did actually come to that conclusion of like, oh, okay, since I know you're not going to be there, there's not actually that much going on in this. Actually, it doesn't really matter what you do. And so I felt like, okay, this is an actual answer, right?
Yeah, I had considered, well, what would this be like for me if I were to carry this meeting on my own? Okay, now that I have the advance notice, there's not really a whole lot going on with it. I think I can handle the things that are going on. And so I feel pretty good about, if I had to carry it, then that's fine. And if you wanted to join, right on time, that would be great too. So from my mind, it was like, this could work both ways. So right. I've got my needs met here.
So, as I was explaining it to this other client, what I highlighted for them is, if I was going to be a people pleaser, there's a likelihood I would not even ask Aaron. I wouldn't even ask him. What I would do is be like, oh crap, I got to change my whole situation. I'm just going to end at one. I'm just going to tell these people it won't work today because there is kind of some flexibility there, and I can just tell them that.
Or I also wonder if it could be, and there's lots of options, but you could have also, if they were going in the session, maybe it was going long or it was going really well, you could have just been like, okay, they really need, the extra half an hour, so I'm just going to do this and just, tell Aaron, sorry, this is just what happened. And the clients really needed it, sort of justify this people pleasing of them
Right.
in that case, right? But in the meantime, sort of trampling over me or like kind of disrespecting me and my time or our relationship in that sense. Somebody's got to lose in this, right?
Right. And so what you're picking, or like I guess in my case in this example, is okay, who does their value of me mean more to in the moment, to where I'll be the esteemed, the bestest and the westest.
Right. Whose opinion do you esteem most highly, and are you seeking after?
Right. And that's all going to be, that could even be situational to whatever's going on. So it's like, you'll know when you're in a situation of people pleasing, when you get the gut check of like, oh, this could be this, I don't really want to say, I don't really want to whatever. Like, okay, well, now your personhood, your, as we would say, like maybe internal family system stuff, which I know some of you are familiar with, part of you is going like, no, we're going to lose everything. Don't do that. Don't say that, And so I think it's a really great example because it's like every vantage point of potential, like your value being questioned. But the reality is your value is not being questioned. That's not happening. I mean, the truth is, like one of the things Aaron was saying earlier with the caricature component, like it might not be that big of a nose, right? So what you're not going to find out, no matter how this goes, you are not going to find out that you're a horrible person. It's not going to happen. What you might find out is that you are mistaken about something because the conflict happens. Conflict meaning like the person disagrees or something, or they're somehow irritated about something.
Or they misunderstood something, or they communicated something and you just misunderstood.
Right. And so you're able then to do this thing called learn, and you can go, oh, okay. And then when you realize like what your part was in it, you can adjust. You will be not adjusting to anything, though, if you people please. There's no adjustment.
Right. So kind of in summary, with the sort of negative, I guess, the result of people pleasing. So as we head for home here and talk about like, what do you do about, people pleasing if this is you? Some of the results, as we've kind of described, are you have like this false intimacy with people, or it's like a false connection or a limited connection. You're limiting the amount of closeness and intimacy you can have with somebody because you're not actually in relationship with the true them, with the true feelings and the true truth of what's really happening. That's being falsified by your people pleasing. There's also a lack of honesty that's happening. Kind of like in your example, Nathan, as you were talking about it earlier, you're not going to be honest with somebody because you're afraid of being wrong. You're afraid of being the person who made a mistake and hurting somebody. So you sort of might twist or distort or hide, evade certain things. Or if you're just a people pleaser and you're just kind of out there and upfront with everything, the other person or the other people in your life are likely not being honest with you because they see you as a delicate flower and they don't really want to hurt your feelings. They don't see that you can tolerate the truth about something.
Well, on top of that, when I'd add in, though, is they don't trust you because ultimately they know your answer is probably going to be yes. But what they don't know is if it's actually authentic. They don't know if you actually mean it. And so they just know like, well, I'll probably do it. And then so then it's very, it's kind of not very mysterious. It's not very interesting. And so people aren't really drawn to that over the course of time.
Yeah, it's not meaningful or substantive, really. In a sense, it can become a using sort of a relationship. I know a lot of people that are people pleasers. If they say yes to things, it's kind of like, oh, well, we need help moving. Oh, well, I'll just ask Johnny. He's always willing to help. It's like, well, if that's you, then your kind of your definition of who you are to the group is somebody who just always gives in. And so people don't really consider who you really are because they don't really know who you really are. So how do you solve this? How do you fix this? There's a couple things that we have talked about kind of on the negative that are sort of I guess we'll highlight here is the first thing is to let other people have their own thoughts and feelings about themselves. Like, let them be responsible for that. It's not your job to be in somebody else's brain and to try to guess what they're thinking or mind read or to care really what their opinions are, because their opinions are their own. It's about them. Instead, care more about what you think. Instead of thinking about and considering what other people are thinking and needing, think more about what you think, what you need, what you want. Like I did in that example with Nathan. Like, well, how is this going to affect me? Think that through and then communicate that honestly with other people.
And we talked earlier about the idea of being responsible to versus being responsible for. So it's really realizing like, okay, I care about the other person. I do care about what they think. I mean, we're not saying that you don't.
Right.
We're saying like, okay, well, you do. Okay, but you also have to simultaneously care about what you think.
Yeah, and I guess the way to differentiate that is I care about what I think, and I'm going to let you tell me what you think, and then I'll care. If you haven't told me, I'm not going to guess.
And that is very hard for those of you out there like that are more intuitive. That is very hard because you kind of think you know already, and you might be right, but that doesn't matter. You still have to hold your own peace, because I guarantee you that even if you are mostly right, you are somewhat wrong.
And then lastly, it's important that you are honest with other people. First, be honest with yourself. We've got a whole episode on being honest with yourself. Go back and listen to that one. Be honest with yourself so that you can then communicate that honestly with other people. And then lastly, be willing to disappoint other people. Practice allowing other people to be disappointed, and notice the feelings that come up in you, manage those feelings, and see that it's okay. It's okay when people are disappointed. It doesn't mean they're disappointed in you as a human being, like you're such a disappointment. No, it's more like, oh, I really wanted your help with this and you can't help me with that. Oh, I'm disappointed. Okay, I'll have to go find something else or someone else to help me. Okay, like that's manageable. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you're unavailable.
It does not mean that you are a disappointment. And sometimes, I realized we were going to go a little bit later because of the 200 episode type of thing, but one of the things that you might use as an indicator if you maybe are a people pleaser, maybe you think, I don't know, I think I'm just a nice person. Okay. Are you burned out? If you are burned out, or if you feel kind of regularly exhausted, you probably are people pleasing more than you think. Because what's happening is, a lot of times for you, it's easier just to say yes and just to go ahead and do something than it is to look inside and go ahead and express what's actually going on. Because for you, that feels like it's actually more work. What you'll find, it's actually less work, because people get to know you through that process. They get more intimacy with you. They know what to care about. And they know that there's an authentic response coming back. So the tension and all of that kind of comes down in the relationship, and it gets easier. And you'll have the times of conflict, quote unquote, go down like they just do. It does take a little bit though, because you will be showing up. And for both you and the other person, that could be weird.
And it's important, if you're going to do this, that you practice with some safe people first. People that you trust, that are close to you, that are safe and healthy, and that care about you, and that will respond positively to this change.
Right. You might even tell them that you're going to work on this, and you know that this has been happening. So with all that, thanks for staying with us as we went a little over. Have a great day.
There was so much there. I was like, man.
It's really dense.
Yeah, as I was unpacking, I was like, man, we could have probably turned this into a couple of episodes. Especially at the end when you were, I'm kind of thinking about this for the next one, when you were talking about like being nice or something. I was like, oh, that's a whole like being the nice guy, sort of a thing. Like, don't be the nice guy. Mm-hmm. It's similar to people pleasing, but it's a different flavor of it for sure.
How would you say it's different?
It's different in that being nice, so people pleasing is intentionally like looking at the other person and thinking about like, oh, I'm going to take care of you and your needs. Being nice, I think, is just sort of being amenable. It's not necessarily taking care of your needs, but it's just like being accommodating, whatever you need, being overly flexible, and not being honest about what you think or feel or need, which is similar to the people pleaser, but it's I guess more in the direction of niceness and not rocking the boat, maybe not saying anything that's controversial, or not getting into topics or issues that could potentially be provocative of any kind. Thinking that niceness is like protecting, but it's really a ton of avoidance and it's a ton of fear. It's similar to people pleasing.
It would be more. It feels to me like more group oriented. Like what I mean by that is dinner party thing is what I think of as somebody being intentional to. I mean, they're not as much worried about people pleasing as they are making sure that everybody gets along almost like.
Yeah, or it could also almost be like reputation management. Like being like I like this dinner party idea. It's kind of like if you're just being nice, it's like you want to make sure that everybody sort of has a nice experience of you.
Yeah.
People pleasing, I think, can go farther than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's more in some ways it's more specific.
Yeah, and it can be kind of more invasive in that sense. I mean, maybe I'm not sure. It's something to think about, but that's kind of what I was thinking when I was like, oh, that's sort of another side,
Well, the people on YouTube just got a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what happens, by the way.
And it really like gets to me, like the whole, maybe it's just more of like I'm passionate about it because it's not talking about what you really think and feel, and it's not really like getting into some of the nitty gritty. Even in relationships, it's not just confronting people and things, but it's also like just having conversations about stuff that we disagree on, or topics, religion, politics, and not to say that you should always go there, but just things that we might disagree on, and like, hey, to be nice, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to, give any feedback or whatever, but some of that feedback can actually be really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking of like, it could be an easy conversation and the person says whatever they're going to say. It's not as much about pleasing. It's about, like you were saying earlier, it's about avoidance. Because if like the religion one kind of hooks me in a little bit because it's so obviously taboo that if somebody says anything about it, it doesn't matter what the religion is. Like the person's going to be like, okay, maybe I'm just not going to engage with this.
They'll just be nice about it.
Nice about
it.
it.
That's great. I'm so glad that works for you.
Yeah. You say, how big is your cauldron?
I mean, witches were so horribly mistreated in the Salem era. Yeah.
Anyway, do you have a football team that you love?
Right, yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, exactly, right. Instead of, asking some challenging questions, or like, oh, I'm not sure what I think about that, or like, I think I have some different opinions, and or whatever, fleshing some of that out. It's that kind of stuff that's like, man, you're just missing out on this opportunity for like more connection, like really, because to me, I guess here's the bottom line of it, and this won't surprise you or any of our listeners if you know me on any level here. It would be my ultimate goal, and I think is the greatest gift you can give somebody, is to see them, is to see who they really are. And so when you get into these like deeper conversations, it's like, I'm giving you an opportunity to see me, and I want to see you.
Yeah, I think it's funny as you were saying that, not that piece, but that is who you are. And it's helped me over the course of time too, because I realize there is an authenticity that just does exist. So when you know that and you can trust it, the fear kind of goes away, because it's like, you're just wanting to know. You're not like,
you don't have an
hold
agenda.
on, just a second, I'm going to judge you.
Right.
Wait. There's a hammer behind you, and go ahead and answer. Right. So, but I was thinking, in the past, what I've said to people who've made a statement about some religious situation, and as an example, actually, I think the examples I'm thinking are more political. I would say, are you asking? Are you wanting feedback? Are you trying to have a conversation, or just making a statement? Because in that way, I mean, like, I'll engage with you, but I'm not sure if you actually are going for that, or if you just wanted to say
Right.
something. That's it. But
Right.
that's not avoidance. That's like, what are we doing here?
And I think that's kind of this. I think we do this so much. That's a skill that as I think about it, other people probably don't have because they're not practicing this all day long. So I like that question because it's kind of like, because I can adjust. I might try something, say something and realize, oh, nope, you're not really looking for a conversation, right? You just wanted to tell me or maybe you've got a lot of like intense feeling about it, So it's like, okay, maybe this isn't I can perceive that it's not the right time. Whereas maybe like an average person might not pick up on some of those things. So that question really is sort of, puts it out there.
They're not conversational nerds like
Like
we have to be.
Right. Seriously. Oh my gosh. I just had this image of who are those movie critics? The two
Siskel and Ebert.
We're like Siskel and Ebert with our popcorn, like conversation nerds, like they're just criticizing everything, and I'm like, you're so disconnected from reality. I liked the movie. That's all. Like, why are you picking it apart?
I got to where, like, if they were giving thumbs down, I knew I would like it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're just getting into the nuances of it. I'm like, is that us? Therapy
Right.
is Siskel and Ebert.
Next time, be careful how you say. Like,
Right.
Nobody cares about that. Just buy the candy bar and walk out of the store. Well, it does matter if I ask for how much sugar's in the candy bar. Anyway, look at the back of the label. All right. Makes no sense because we're running out of brain.
Your brain is old. That's what it is.
It does suck that your brain gets old.